welcome to Connect to Success. I'm your host, Ashley Owens, your personal networking concierge on RVN TV, where we get the chance to interview power networkers in the South Jersey and Philadelphia area, and now all over the world by the power of Zoom. I have the pleasure and the privilege of being able to interview Mr. Brent Edwards. Brent, you're calling from somewhere a little bit further than the East Coast of the United States. You're calling from Canada. So exciting.
Yes, absolutely. Terrific to be on your show.
I'm so thrilled that you're here. You have such a unique background, and your business is so unique. And I think I fangirled a little bit on our immediate call because I've never heard of a unique service offering as much as yours. So you are a professional networking advisor by BrentCanada Experiences, and I am so excited to learn more about that. So I know what you do, who you are, what makes you awesome, but please tell the audience who you are, what you do, and what your niche is.
Yeah, Ashley, thanks so much for having me on your show. I've seen some of your past episodes and some of the international speakers you've spoke to, so I'm privileged to be on today. Yeah, so BrentCanada Experiences is my passion project. So I've been working on this for the past couple of years. My mission really is to help newcomers to Canada overcome their #1 hurdle to career success, which is the lack of a professional network. So I've started this operation really to assist these newcomers who've been here for less than 2 years, whether they're career hunting and job searching or looking to start their own business, really to help them overcome this a challenge for them. We have so many newcomers come to Canada every year. About a third of them come to the Greater Toronto area, which is about the same in size as the Delaware Valley. But the #1 challenge they have is actually building a professional network, because a lot of them have moved halfway around the world. They don't have new connections, even though they're incredibly talented, have huge amount of credentials, and already contribute to our economy, but they don't have those connections. And a lot of cases, it's a new way of doing business for them. So a lot of them struggle with understanding Canadian business culture and understanding how we connect and make decisions in Canada. So I do my small part to help them out.
How did you even think to put this together? Take me through the process of you starting this business, where there was a need, and how you got exposed to this kind of discrepancy between people coming, from out of the country into Canada, and how did you find the need, and why was it your mission to fix it?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. Probably going back about 10 years. I've always been interested in the tourism industry. I had worked in the travel industry for many years in business development, product development, and marketing. Really wanted to get involved in tourism, but the Canadian tourism industry is much smaller than it would be in parts of the US. So I was looking for other ways to contribute. And what I realized was, because I'm a passionate Canadian, I wanted to share, the benefits of the country with visitors. Then I realized they were actually on a continuum. You've got people who are coming for, a weekend or a week, we call tourists. You have people coming for a month or maybe going to a conference, which is the industry I was involved in. You have other people who are coming for a couple of years who would be considered to be expats, and there's a whole relocation industry around them. And then there are people who are moving halfway around the world to start a brand new life in Canada, and those are people who are immigrants. And I felt I could actually contribute to them as well. So I did some volunteer work with the Institute for Canadian Citizenship, organizing new citizenship ceremonies for new Canadians, and also did some work with the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council, acting as a mentor for new Canadians. Realized that there was still a gap where I could help accelerate their progress to career success and do it faster based on my 30 years in business development and building relationships in the Greater Toronto area. So decided to launch BrentCanada Experiences.
So what is it like for you, though? I feel like it's such a different and more of a incredible experience to work with somebody coming out of a different country, right? And coming into Canada and immersing themselves in the culture. It's a whole different networking experience. Take me through what it's like. What is it like for you to be able to do that for somebody? Because, not just professionally networking, but you're helping them with everything. I mean, everything it means to just get acclimated to the culture.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm doing my small part. There's a lot of people in Canada and in Ontario and in Greater Toronto area who are helping newcomers in their own small way. The immigrants are such a vital part of our economy. If it weren't for newcomers coming to Canada, basically our labor market would be flat. There wouldn't be any growth. So their dynamism, the value that they add to the fabric of our country is so important to helping Canada win on the international stage. So yes, I get a lot of value out in helping them, but for a lot of them, they have so many credentials. They go through a very rigorous process to become immigrants to Canada. And it's once they get here, what I want to avoid, the main mission, Ashley, really, is I want them to avoid having any buyer's remorse about their choice. They've uprooted their families, come to Canada, and I don't want them 5 years from now thinking, you know what, I made a mistake, I chose the wrong country. So I feel that we all have an obligation to be able to help the newcomers feel settled and really start to give back to the country, which is what they all want to do.
So take me through the process of some working with you in this capacity. I know you've worked with a couple other people that are collaborating and kind of bringing, making the transition easy for new people to come into the country. But take me through what you do specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So initially I was starting to do work with job seekers, but what I found is actually newcomers who are starting their own business, like a micro business, really could use the most help. Because for some of them, depending on which markets and which countries they're coming from, as I mentioned, networking is potentially a new way of doing business. Doing business with, making introductions to strangers, having coffee chats is something that may be new and different for them. What I've found is that I actually focus on a few areas of Canadian business culture. That is the way that we connect, the way that we make decisions, and the way we deal with change. And really outlining how those are different from the environment they're coming from. Because if you're selling into business to business, and virtually my whole entire business career has been in the business to business space, there are differences really at a national level, a regional or provincial level. There's also differences in terms of culture for the organization that they represent, and also personal differences. So what I want to do is make sure that they're not making any assumptions about doing business in Canada, any of the regional differences. And it's really been challenging for some of my clients, especially during the pandemic. I had one client who had moved out to Calgary, and normally they would be able to get out, they would network, they go to different events. But because of the pandemic, they really have not been able to get out and understand their local community or the province of Alberta. So those are areas where I feel that I can go above and beyond what's available on YouTube and on Google to assist them, to help them understand the new landscape that they find themselves in.
Can you take me through the experience that you've had with, again, some coming into the country? Like, give me a case study of how you've been able to help them.
Sure, exactly. So I think another client who actually is starting up an IT company. They're involved with artificial intelligence. I had actually met them through networking, through a contact of mine in Salt Lake City, who they had done some business with while they were in India. They'd come to one of my events that I had hosted on diversifying your professional network. We started to work together. What I was able to do is basically work through with them. I had a consultation session with them, understand a bit about what they understood about the Canadian business culture and what their objectives were, and then actually had a 2-hour session with them to take them through background on Canadian business culture, history, geography, considerations. We also did a section even on idioms. It's funny, one of the examples with this particular client, I had met with him before he became a client, and I said, let's get together. We'll find some time to meet downtown Toronto. I'll be in your neck of the woods, and we'll meet up. So anyway, we had our coffee chat, and then when he became a client of mine, he said, "Brent, what was that neck of the woods? What were you talking about?" And that's kind of a local colloquialism around your neighborhood. But we make these assumptions because somebody like me who's grown up in the business culture of Canada, it's similar for someone in other countries or in the United States, or whether you're in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, there's always things that you've just grown up doing and you're used to doing. And somebody who's brand new to the culture, there's things that these nuances that they might miss. And I feel I can help them identify some of those gaps, and it might be blind spots in terms of doing business, and help them to be successful.
Well, it's the communication. I mean, it's the foundation of what good networking is being able to communicate, follow up, and actually do the best practices about, nurturing a network. So if anything, the foundation has already been laid out for how you even start to network with somebody coming out of a different country into Canada. And, your guidance and how you've been able to really master the way of helping people expand on their own businesses, get acclimated to the culture, get acclimated to the country, and being that resource for them is already the foundation of what networking is. But you've taken it and it's askew, right? It's in a niche that's so perfect for where you are, and I find that to be so creative and extraordinary. So, when you are working with different people that are coming into the country, what has been, do they understand, or do majority of your clients, do they understand the power of networking, or do you think that you need, or wow, apparently words are hard today, Brent, so sorry. How have you been able to, listen, this is straight vodka, we're just gonna keep going. Smart Water is not a sponsor yet, but they could be. But what has been the most common misconception about networking with your clients that are coming into the country?
Sure. So I'll give you an example. I was on when local TV, or actually it's a national TV show called New Canadians. They broadcast on one of the cable channels here in Toronto, and they'll broadcast across the country. And the person who was interviewing me was originally from New Delhi. She was actually a TV broadcaster in the business. And I was talking to her about networking and reciprocation and being generous and the importance of curiosity. And she kind of said, as an aside during her interview, she said, "So you mean that networking is not transactional?" And I said, "Yes, yeah, that's the idea." And we talked after the interview, and again, India is such a huge, diverse country, 1.3 billion people, thousands of communities, faiths, languages. But in her particular city, in the capital city of India, the pace of business is so fast. The number of contacts that she could reach out to were so quick. And in Canada, there's 37 million of us. Yeah, we're a good-sized country, but the pace of business was slower. And it's the time to build those relationships take longer, and just the pace of business is a bit slower than what she was used to and some of her compatriots were.
So Brett, when we come back, I don't mean to cut you off, but we have to take a break. When we come back, I want to expand more on your particular tactical tips and practical takeaways in networking, coming from somebody from Canada, and how you've been able to really maximize the efficiency with your clients involved in a new culture. We'll be right back.
My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
trucks built for fun. Legendary rock and roll clubs.
This is how we do it. Hippity hop.
Casinos by the ocean.
Hippity hop.
Now that's New Jersey. 130 miles of beautiful beaches, solid rock, and everything in between.
Look in the window.
Now that's New Jersey. Plan your New Jersey trip at visitnj.org. Waves of fun. Nights of excitement. And a trail of memories. Now that's New Jersey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Connected Success. I'm your host, Ashley Owens, your personal networking concierge. I am talking to the famous Brent Edwards of BrentCanada, who facilitates and helps clients transition from out of the country into Canada using the power of networking. So, Brent, thank you for being on the show today. During the break, we were talking about the importance of community, and I think you brought up some really good points. So can you go into what the difference, or at least what the challenges may or may not be with somebody coming out of the country and then learning how to build essentially a brand new community of advocates when they come to this new area?
Absolutely. So if you're looking at immigrants who are coming to Canada, a lot of them are internationally educated professionals. They've had successful careers before they arrive in Canada. But in coming to the new country, they're in some ways, even though they've journeyed here, they're just starting their journey. And it's building that community of people who can advocate and champion their success. But when you're starting with no one, and it's a brand new culture in a lot of ways, that's where I feel that I can help them. So some of the tips I give them, some of it's around mindset. A lot of it's around mindset of curiosity in terms of being interested in other people. And they are, but it's being interested in strangers, people you've never met before. And some of it's getting out of the comfort zone to talk to people you've never met. Like, Ashley, you and I have met through networking, but we actually haven't met in person yet until virtually today. So a couple of things I give in terms of tips. One is to look at your networking relationships as a investment portfolio. So if you were going back to the beginning of the pandemic, if you had invested into one particular industry, say, beach stocks, so booking, entertainment, accommodations, cruise, and hospitality, and you only had relationships in that particular industry, it would be a challenge for you in terms of continuing your career. So part of it is look for them to diversify in terms of who they're dealing with. Another message I give is around looking at their career direction. So my career has taken many twists and turns. I want to get into either the travel industry and hotels, or get into public relations. I'm in public relations related work now. I was in hotels for many years, but there's many ways to get to your destination. So what I encourage them to do is look at a map, North America. So if you were to travel from St. John's in Newfoundland and Labrador to Victoria, British Columbia, from coast to coast in Canada, there are major highways. There's really only a couple that you could use to get there, really the Trans-Canada Highway. What I encourage them to do is to look at a map of the United States where you have your interstate highway system. And if you were to go from, say, Los Angeles to Philadelphia, there's probably at least 12 different ways and different highways that you could take to make that journey. And keep your destination in mind, but there's many ways you can get there. Another piece of advice I give them goes back to the Jerry Maguire movie with Tom Cruise in the 1990s, where he says, "Help me help you." And it's really about, as a newcomer, articulating how someone can help you. There are a lot of people in the Greater Toronto Area and Ontario and Canada who want to help newcomers, but it's actually, let us know in terms of how we can actually assist you with your career journey or growing your business. The last kind of piece of advice I would give them is in terms of being open to others. So a lot of people come in and they have very focused, almost blinders on in terms of, I need to meet a particular person. I need to meet this person at this organization to succeed. And what I've suggested is, in a lot of cases, when you're networking with strangers, you really don't know the people. You don't know who they were. You don't know who they are. You don't know who they may become. And you don't know who they know. So you want to go in as a peer and keep your mindset open to connecting with people who may initially on first step may not appear to be able to directly help you, but you never know through the reciprocation of networking when that person may be able to help you, and more importantly, when you'd be able to help them. So
what has been your, I mean, everything you're saying is so interesting, and it's taken at such a, it's, the reason why I'm having trouble even saying any of this is because it's so profound what you're able to do for people coming into a new environment. I wish, like if I were ever to travel abroad, is to even have someone there to just be like, you know, if I'm getting my visa or if I'm working, let's say in Ireland or, you know, Scotland or whatever, and to have somebody like you to go over and say, here's the people that you want to meet, but here's the kind of communities you want to be a part of, here's the kind of organizations you want to enjoy, and I'll be here as an advocate for you whenever you need help. And it's just, it's so helpful, especially now during the pandemic where everything is just insane, to have that kind of camaraderie and a built-in, you know, power networker to help and make sure that your foundation is stable and your mindset's there. In your opinion, you know, with your own network, you building your own network, obviously things have changed since the pandemic and you and I have connected, which is fantastic and probably wouldn't have happened unless the pandemic happened. So take me through how your network and how nurturing your network has changed.
Sure. So if I look back at the pandemic, I mean, a lot of us have said, oh, you know, the online events or the in-person events we used to go to really aren't available anymore. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, I look at it as actually the whole world has opened up. Mm-hmm. You know, we were both on a networking event in Ireland a couple of weeks ago, mm-hmm. thanks to, you know, myself connecting with you and connecting with some other people in Ireland, people who have been on your show. And it just opens up a whole new world of people. I was able to connect with Karen Powell, who is a great professional networker, has a networking business called Your Time Matters out of Melbourne, Australia. Wow. She was kind enough to actually adjust the time of her event in Australia because there was 14 hours time difference to Toronto. Wow. So I could actually attend her event. Wow. Robbie Samuels, has a podcast called On the Schmooze. He runs a great networking event out of Boston, has people attending from all over the world, and is also involved with being a virtual in-person event host. He's been very welcoming and providing advice. So these people in these different countries, whether it's Ireland, the United States, Australia, and I think it's just been a matter of, it's almost what the improv comedians do. You know, Second City's big in Toronto, mm-hmm. and when they're actually on stage, the first rule is you say yes. So if your partner suggests something, your answer is yes, and that way the skit continues and the laughs come. And it's almost the same with networking. When people suggest an opportunity to you to come to an event, I wouldn't think and double think too, think too much in terms of it. Just say yes, and the number of opportunities that can flow from connecting with people who you never know how you're going to be able to help them. But during the pandemic, you need to take advantage of all those opportunities. What they say in Latin, you know, caveat or, seize the day.
Seize the day. Yeah, carpe diem.
So what you want to do.
Carpe diem. So when somebody works with you, you know, especially around just being comfortable in their own skin, because it can be very, very nerve-wracking coming from out of the country. And I'm just thinking of my own experiences, like what I think I would need to feel comfortable. One, starting a business in a new country, and two, having the resources to be able to do that. What do you provide personally and professionally that is different than somebody else in the networking industry?
Yeah, I think, I mean, Canada, there's so many supports available, both from the public sector, from the private sector for newcomers. There's a lot of people doing a lot of great works, a lot of nonprofit organizations. I guess where I'm trying to help in is really speed to market for them, market entry, understanding some of the constraints when they're starting to decide on a business concept. In terms of what they need to think about in terms of regional differences. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, but I do know a bit about the country, how it operates. And I think it's some of those basic concepts where some of us will take for granted, understanding, like, professional networking is an example. It's understanding the why. It's easy to provide all kinds of rules and guidelines, but it's understanding why people in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, why we do what we do. And I think my experience working with so many different industries and sectors for the last 30 years in the business to business space has given me some of that expertise that I can share with them to understand why people are doing what they do. Because you can provide specific guidelines, but unless you understand the motivation of why the new people you're dealing with are why they're taking so long to make a decision, or why they need to be so inclusive in terms of bringing people to the table for decision making, or why that people have personal moats between their work colleagues and their friends, and all those different variations, it can be very confusing. It's those nuances that tend to trip people up. And I feel that's kind of the space that maybe some of these other services are not as able to help with, because so many people are coming for assistance, but I can help some small businesses get started.
I find that so extraordinary. As we kind of wrap up, what has been your advice on virtual networking for your clients?
Take advantage of it. It's the thing with virtual networking is a lot of these conferences that people used to not be able to go to as newcomers, they had access issues and security at the actual events. And a lot of them have now opened up these events to many more people to attend. So as a job seeker or as a business networker looking for suppliers, customers, or business partners, there's so many more opportunities that are available, and also in a lot of cases the price has come down. The price point has come down to actually go to these events. So many of the events, there's about 25,000 in-person networking events in the Greater Toronto area every year. A lot of those have gone online, and a lot of them where they previously may have charged for, again, they have reduced their price or they're free. So there's just actually so many more events. And also just look outside your local region. I've networked with some other folks from Pennsylvania, from Philadelphia, and from South Jersey. There are so many events within the Delaware Valley that I've learned about, but look at all these other events outside of your local area. It may be a great place to practice, get to meet people, less stressful, and then you can come back to your local community and just show how confident, what a difference you can make, and all these relationships that you've built.
Brent, you are wonderful and extraordinary. Please look into that camera that you've been looking into and tell people how they can find you, besides going to Canada.
Absolutely. So BrentCanada Experiences, so my website is www.networkingfornewcomers.ca.
Wonderful, Brent. Thank you again very much for coming on the show today. I think your experience and your service offerings are so beneficial, and the mindset that you've been able to help your clients that are coming in is exactly what we hope every networker ends up gaining over the course of their experience. So it's great that you're starting them off on the right foot. So if you'd like to get in touch with Brent, make sure you reach out to him, especially if you're traveling or just to network. If you'd like to become on the show as a guest, please email ashley@ashleyassist.com. My name's Ashley Owens. I am your host for today on Connect to Success. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Ashley.